Any new moon, especially the one on January 11th, there are good times to set intentions, to start upon a new path, free of resistance, and with the increased ability to generate a lot of momentum if you can work with this new moon energy in a conscious and proactive way. The opportunities here, I wrote down here, new moon equals new you. Right now is a fantastic time to really be the person you want to be, to really start behaving and living a life like the person you've always wanted to become, but maybe in the past had a difficult time doing. Maybe in the past you were more bogged down by habits, circumstance, relationships, negative beliefs, momentum of the past self perpetuating itself. And though you always knew where you wanted to go and who you wanted to be, it was just hard. You were fighting, it was an uphill battle. This new moon on January 11th is a fantastic opportunity to really declare to the universe who it is you want to be, the person you want to grow into and evolve into and move towards. And most importantly, it's go time. Get that ball rolling and start a new momentum in a new trajectory that is more in alignment with who you truly are than ever before. So what I'll do now is break this new moon energy down for January 11th into 3 more discernible themes to give you awareness so you can get the most out of this powerful gateway of time we are living in. Number 1 is it's go time. It's go time. What that means, it's really time to start being the person you know yourself to be. I can imagine over the last year, you've gotten a lot more clarity about who you truly are, your true values, what really matters to you, what resonates with you, the type of relationships you know you deserve, maybe the place you want to live on the planet, maybe the career you know that's real and right for you. And anyway, we can go through these periods where we're aware of all that, and at the same time, we're almost like allowed energetically to not really be doing any of that stuff. It's just more of like this, it's always a someday. Someday I'd like to be a YouTuber. Someday for me, I used to live in Michigan and I wanted to be in California. Someday I'll live in California. Well, sometimes this energy comes in and amplifies and basically lights a fire under your behind and says, it's go time. It's time to start being who you are. And the way it does that is by magnifying, making more heavy, more miserable, anything in your life that is in a direct contradiction to who you decide you want to be. For example, maybe you know in your heart you're meant to be doing something differently with your career. Maybe you feel called to be a coach or a healer or work with people, but you're an accountant, we'll say. Well, what will happen, and what I'm trying to say here, is that you're going to start to hate your job even more than you used to. Maybe you get moved into a new cubicle and your neighbor is extremely annoying, talks about the news all day, and you don't care to hear about it. So you leave feeling extra drained. And now your boss comes in and says, guess what? We're doing pay cuts. And things will get more sucky to basically show you that this is not you. This is not authentic. This is not who you know yourself to be. So why are you doing it? I remember years ago, I used to be a medical marijuana grower, and that was my career. And during that time, as the years went on, I became less and less interested in that and more passionate about doing what I'm doing now, being a YouTuber, a professional YouTuber. I knew in my heart I wanted to be someone who is like a helper and a guide to folks on YouTube in particular. And that desire, that passion just continued to grow and grow and grow. And almost like in direct proportion to that, my grow operation became more and more of a pain in the butt. For example, I got this thing called root aphids. Root aphids is like one of the nastiest, most detrimental like diseases you can get with your plants, to where every day I had to flush them with this solution, all the different plants, and it became this very laborious, exhausting process, and the plant still continued to get worse and worse and worse and worse. So I was working harder and harder and harder, and the quality was getting less and less and less. All the while, my passion, my knowing, you're not meant to be doing this. You want to go to San Diego. You want to be on YouTube. That was building and building and building and building. And it got to this sort of breaking point, which is exactly what I'm trying to highlight now when I say it's go time. And a lot of times what prevents us from really committing is fear. It's fear and a lack of information that we think we must have. I know I want to do this, but how? You might have asked yourself. What I found is that when you take that first step, you get new information. And we will be blind until that point. As long as we're hanging on to something or someone we know is not meant for us, not right for us, we know it in the depth of our being, we're not going to get the information we need because we're not really doing it. We're not really committing to it. And what comes to mind is an analogy I've shared before in my coaching programs and at my retreats. It's imagine that you are walking in a very dimly lit cave, and the only light you have is this little lantern. And most people who have that little lantern don't want to take a single step for obvious reasons. You don't want to fall down a freaking mine shaft or run into a swarm of bats or you go make a wrong turn, make a mistake. And you're like, I can't see anywhere. What do I do? But if you take that one step forward, that light comes with you and suddenly illuminates a little bit more of your path. And right now, most of you are sitting with the direction, like the result, the end goal you want to have, and are frozen at the starting line thinking that you're not going to be supported when you know in your intuition you will be. Thinking that you need this thing that you know is energetically becoming heavier and heavier. And all the while, the universe is just saying, listen, life is going to continue to suck more and more and more until you finally start committing to the path you want to walk down. And I can tell you, when you walk down that path, my friend, you will be amazed at just how much support you'll receive. And it'll come in very unusual, unexpected ways. Carl Jung calls this synchronicity. It's when the inside matches the outside and there's this sensing of something profound happening. You'll get these little omens, these little clues from the universe the more you commit to that path. But only you can do it. And blocking most people is a very, very thick, dense layer of fear. But luckily that fear is like a cloud and you can pass right through it anytime you want. I remember a long time ago, a couple years ago, I was in Costa Rica and we were drinking wachuma. Wachuma is like this cactus medicine. It's like has mescaline in it. It's kind of like peyote. You may have heard of peyote. Anyway, the person leading this ceremony asked me to speak. He asked me to give a speech kind of at the end, like towards the end of the ceremony. And because I looked up to this guy so much, and also because I was feeling the medicine, I thought about what I would say the entire ceremony. There was 12 hours maybe of different things we would do as a group. And the whole time I'm in my head, what am I going to talk about? I need to say something important, that kind of thing. And it got to the point where I was maybe an hour away. And even though I'd scribbled a million things in my notebook, I was completely lost. My mind was blank. What the hell am I going to do? I have this important talk to give, but I feel completely stuck. And as I was laying there, my wife Patty came by with this rapé or hapé. It's like this tobacco snuff that you blow up your nose. Normally, I'm not really into it, but I was like, man, I got nothing to lose here. What the hell? And she blasted me in the nose with a hapé, and I felt a little bit better. I was like, okay, I'm feeling a bit more clear. And then my buddy Aaron Dowdy, he came by. He was going around at that time giving everybody honey drops or sananga, these drops to your eyes. And he came by with some honey drops, and I was like, I normally say no to that, but I was like, you know what? I need to try something, Aaron, so go ahead. He globbed this honey in my eyes, and it burned really bad, but then I felt better, and I felt more clear. And then there's a person over there, like at the end of the ceremony space, he kind of waved me down and he flagged me over. And what he did is he showed me how to roll this tobacco thing, this like big tobacco joint, I guess you could call it. And he was teaching me how to do it, teaching me how to put my intention into the tobacco and letting me know that, listen, you can trust the tobacco to speak through you with your intention. So anyway, this happened. And then as I went and sat back down with like my big tobacco cigarette thing, this woman started singing this beautiful song about being in the moment. And it was like she was singing just for me. It was so perfect. And I was like, wow, this is all just happening so miraculously. And then right before I had to get up and give my talk, this big, one of the guests there, a fan of mine, his name's Riley, he came up and he gave me this, he was like, Victor, I got to just give you a hug, man. And he made me stand up and he gave me this crazy bear hug where he was like squeezing me to death. And I was like, but I could feel his appreciation. Anyway, the reason I'm saying all of this is because I had to give one little talk. And by the time I gave that talk, after all these things just sort of synchronistically happened, it was maybe my best talk ever. I didn't have to think at all. The universe just spoke through me in a more eloquent, beautiful way than I probably have done in my entire life. And that's just for a little talk I had to do on a Wachuma day. Imagine you and your purpose, your expression to life, this new direction you're going in, this like next chapter of your entire life. Imagine how much support you'll receive, my friend. It's there, and it can come in so many unexpected ways, but you have to step up to the plate. You have to start being yourself. It's go time. No one can initiate this beautiful synchronicity except you. Number 2, my friends, discovering your worth. Another thing that tends to trip people up is this deeply rooted belief that I'm not enough. I might try my best to do this thing that lights me up with passion and excitement, but what if I fail? Well, if I fail, that of course means that I must not be enough. That deep fear that something's wrong with me will be seen as true. So I'd rather avoid all of it than deal with that horrid possibility. But what we start to do at this point, when we start to kind of allow that illusion of unworthiness dictate our actions or lack thereof, we start manifesting them. It does start coming to light in kind of a bizarre but illusory way. I'll give an example. One time, I launched this program from my brand. It was what I called an online retreat. This is going to be where I shared a bunch of stuff to people who came, the people that couldn't come to my retreats I would do in Sedona. It was for everybody online. And this is a very strong passion. I had a very strong passion to do this, but I have this fear, this deep fear. Anytime I launch something, whether it's a retreat or a coaching program, I have this like deep fear, I used to anyway, that no one's going to show up. No one's going to want it. No one's going to care about it. And that would mean I am not enough. So anyway, this fear I'm talking about would play out in these weird ways. So I launched the online retreat, and sure enough, very few people signed up. Probably like 5% of the number that you would expect from somebody with like my size audience. Oh my God, those feelings of unworthiness just oozed up to the surface and brought me down like a dead anchor, just sinking in the ocean. Oh, I knew it all along. It was true. Oh man, but you know what? Bonehead didn't put the dates. Who's going to sign up for an online retreat when they have no idea whatsoever when it's going to start, when it's going to end, how long it is? That's how these worthiness blocks, if that's what you're dealing with, can sort of manifest. And we create it, but it doesn't have to be that way. It's a complete self-sabotage. And over time, and during times like this, you start to wake up to the shenanigans of your subconscious mind and the way it can sometimes manifest physically. And you start to realize maybe some of the patterns, some of the failures in your own life weren't necessarily due to not really your fault. They were never your fault. And you can wake up to that. A lot of us have this with childhood. Mom or dad wasn't there as much as we needed. And what does the young child conclude? Well, something must be wrong with me. It's like, is that actually true? Or is mom and dad just had stuff going on? Or mom and dad maybe just had their issues. They're doing the best they can, yeah, but they have their own conditioning, their own karma, their own neurosis. Maybe it's just them. And you've been living your life with this sort of conclusion that you drew when you were a very young child that there's something wrong with you. If you look at it logically, a lot of times these things that we believe are our fault aren't actually our fault. What I'm trying to share with you is that you might start waking up to this in your own way, realizing that none of that was my fault. That you are worthy. In fact, you're a good person. You have a lot to be proud of, I imagine. Probably a lot of challenges you've overcome, a lot of leaps of faith you've taken that most people would not have, a lot of things you've learned. You're probably wise beyond your years. You could probably make a huge list of all the badass qualities of yourself. And this type of reevaluation of the self is what I'm trying to convey here. This new moon might help you and inspire you to do in your own way. You might finally start waking up to your true worth. And one that knows their true worth and their true power is an indomitable force in the universe. And whatever dreams you have, you'll have no problem doing it because you finally are awake to who and what you truly are and who and what you're made of. And finally, number 3, I'll explain. It's seeming kind of vague. Vibrational upgrade. What I mean by that is I'm trying to say you've already experienced a massive vibrational upgrade. And that's what can sometimes create this. It can create an acceleration of things you need to let go of. It can accelerate this self-awareness coming into your own worth and this feeling like it's finally time to start being the person I'm meant to be. It can really accelerate all that. But what can sometimes happen and often does is all of this is happening and still you're kind of stuck. You're sort of stuck, unable to move forward. And you're like, man, I got to be over here. I got to have this new job. I got to be living over here. I got to get out of this situation. It's not right for me. It's heavy. It's not compatible energetically, but I see no way out. And that's what happened to me when I knew in my heart I was meant to live in San Diego. I knew in my heart I was meant to be a full-time YouTuber, but I had bills. I'm a father. I have 3 children. I'm married. We had a house. We had cars. We had families. We had a whole life. And we couldn't just vanish and shift to this place I knew I belonged. And there was this limbo. A lot of times I've seen it where people who are going through a spiritual awakening, and it's kind of interesting how often it happens, but at some point during their journey, many of them find themselves back living with mom and dad, regardless of how old they are. And then it's like, oh, this like pressure cooker. Like, why am I here? It's so hard to stay clear. It's so hard to stay balanced. I don't belong here. I want to be here. I know where I want to go, but I don't see how the hell I'm going to do it. And that was me, wanting to be in San Diego, but unable to. And what I've learned over the years is that sometimes we can sort of psychically foresee where we are heading before it's actually time to do it. But I have also found that like the desperate longing to be somewhere that I couldn't actually be in this sort of imaginary future just made me very, very miserable. The contrast of where I wanted to be versus where I was. And eventually I found myself kind of coming to terms with, okay, Vic, it's not quite time to move to San Diego. But what is it exactly that you like about San Diego? At the time, again, I was living in Michigan. It was winter time, and I lived in a kind of a big city. So there was like no nature. All of the trees, all the leaves are gone. It was cold. Everything was dead looking. And I was fond of San Diego because of the weather. And I told myself I'd go on hikes and things like that. So I just decided that while I'm still here, I'm going to do my absolute best to make the best of it. I said, okay, it's winter. So what? I'm going to go for a walk every day. You want nature? Go out your front door. Tough guy. And that's what I did. Went out my front door, started walking, and I enjoyed these walks. I remember liking how nobody else walked in the winter, where I was from anyway. And there was this beautiful peacefulness That was really cool. It was right outside my door this whole time as I was fantasizing about San Diego, but I was so blind to it because I was so in denial of where I was. Too much future blocked me from the coolness of what was available. And as I mentioned, I was really fond of nature, right? And what I found is like literally like a 5-minute walk from my house, there was this really gorgeous nature spot with a pond and trees. It was a cemetery, come to find, but I didn't care. It was this beautiful little oasis of nature in this sort of dense city of Royal Oak, Michigan, where I was living at the time. And I would go there every day. In fact, if you watch my YouTube videos from years ago, I would film them there. I would film them in front of this pond because I just loved being there so much. There was a nice high vibe there, even with all the the gravestones. It was a beautiful place. But the point is, once I accepted where I was and stopped yearning for the future, I was able to bring many of the important qualities that I associated with the future. Come to find, they were right there all along. And then what happened, ironically, is the more I accepted where I was at, the more I chose to make the best of it. It got a lot easier. And before I knew it, boop, I was in San Diego. Because when you're living in a state of acceptance and gratitude and like neutrality, your vibration skyrockets. And then as that happened, the means in which I was to move became clear to me. And within a very, very short span of time, I was living in San Diego. I was living my dream. My YouTube channel blew up. I was going to work at the beach. I used to do one-on-one coaching on the beach at Mission Beach in San Diego. I would be driving to work against traffic, no traffic. Everybody was in traffic going to their jobs. I was just heading to Mission Beach, where I would be like one of like 2 or 3 people. As far as I could see, I'd be talking to cool people from all over the world on the phone, coaching them. And I was living the dream. But I didn't get there by wanting intensely. I got there by being the person I knew myself to be. I got there by letting go of what I knew was not right for me. The girl operation, all the old stories, the identity, all that stuff. I had to let it go in a very real way. I had to wake up to who I was. I had to stop buying into the fear, buying into the negative thinking that stemmed from these subconscious beliefs that I was not enough. I had to start ignoring that part of my psyche and letting inspiration fuel my action. I had to start following the resonance. There's always going to be things in your life that feel energetically less compatible than others. And usually the direction in which we are to go is like the source of the highest excitement. For me, again, it was YouTube, San Diego. That was my true north. What's your true north? Where do you really want to be? And in the meantime, until it's time to make the right action, accept it all. Maybe you got to keep going to your job that you don't like. Fine, make the best of it. Your attitude can make a profound difference in how you experience this job. The main thing is vibration, my friend. This new moon is going to elevate your vibration. I did my best to kind of convey all the different effects it might have. But as you raise your vibration, you can't hold yourself back from being the person you know yourself to be. And whether it's today or 6 months from now, you're growing, you're heading in that direction, my friend. And hopefully some of the things I said will help make your transit a lot smoother and maybe even faster. With that said, my friend, before I go, let me offer you a free ceremony. It's a breathwork ceremony. It's something I've taken thousands of people through. It's a very good way to do a lot of this. It's a good way to release old energy. It's a fantastic way to become clear about who you are and your life purpose and just connect with your higher consciousness. It's a very safe but very powerful modality, similar almost to psychedelics, but the fuel is your own God-given breath. And it's something I've done a lot of times. It's a gift to you. It's a free guided ceremony. So if I'll leave a link down below. You can put your email in and then I will send you this video. All you have to do is pop it on your computer, and then lay back and enjoy the ride, my friend. It's like my gift to you. And I wish you well on your path, and thank you for watching, and I'll hopefully see you in the next video. Much love.